I make $120,000 a year, and yet the bank refused to give me a mortgage. What happened? What did I do wrong? Will I ever be able to buy a house? Let's calm down a little. The bank didn't approve your mortgage, not because you didn't have money. They didn't approve your mortgage mainly because of these two reasons. One, you don't have stable income. Banks want to see that every single month you're generating stable income, consistent income. They don't want to see that in January you make $50,000 a year and then the next paycheck you're getting, it's $50,000 in July. Now, that's very risky for them. They want to see that every single month you're bringing in stable income so that with that income, you can pay the mortgage back. If you happen to be a business owner, that can simply be fixed by paying yourself a salary on a monthly basis. And if you are not a business owner and you work on special projects here and there, one option you have is to get a part-time job, something that helps you prove that every single month you're generating stable income without impacting any other special project that you might have on the side. Welcome back to Nova Rise. I created this channel to share my journey in investing. My portfolio is composed of real estate, investments in the stock market, precious metals, and small businesses. Let's get started. So the way it works is that before the lender even considers approving a mortgage, the first thing they need to look into is your FICO score. And the FICO score is reported by 3 agencies, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And when you go and apply for a mortgage, what they'll do is to pull all 3 credit reports. And they're going to look at all 3 credit reports, but in the end, they're going to end up working with just 1 credit report. And the way they decide that 1 credit report is by looking at the score in the middle. So let's say, for example, these are your 3 credit reports. With Experian, you have a 770, and with TransUnion is 680, and let's say that with Equifax, it's 780. So when you look at these scores, you will see that this is the lowest score in your report, and this is the highest. And this one is the one in the middle. So by default, the lender will pick this score to work with. And based on this score, your interest rate is going to be determined as well as your approval chances. So here's a tip for you. You don't have to just take the score for what it is. You can actually improve your chances of getting approved for a mortgage and also improve your chances of getting a lower interest rate in your mortgage. So the first thing you're going to do is to call each and one of your credit card banks and ask them which credit bureau do they report to. Then you're going to select the credit card that reports to that bureau where you have that middle score. In this example is Experian, but it doesn't have to be Experian in your case. If it's TransUnion, then focus on the one reporting to TransUnion. And if they're reporting to Equifax instead, then focus on Equifax. The important thing here is that you focus on the one reporting to the bureau where you have your middle score. Then you're going to pay as much as you can to that particular credit card that reports to that credit bureau with the middle score. And if possible, try to see if you can actually pay off that credit card completely. This payment will then get reported to the credit bureau, and then you will see your score being updated in approximately 2 weeks. And your new score should look something like this. So let's say your hard work paid off. Congratulations. Now your new middle score went from 770 to 790. Voila. So what happens here? Well, it turns out that this will no longer be your middle score. Now this is your new highest score. And your old highest score is now the new middle score. And that means that the bank will now work based on this score. And that's a higher score than the one you had before. And with this higher score, that means that you will not only increase your chances of getting approved for a mortgage, but you may also be able to get much lower interest rates to buy that beautiful house that you want so badly. But wait, why should I focus on the middle score? Wouldn't that make more sense if I focus on the highest score? Not quite. Let's look at the example again. Let's say that instead of working on the middle score, you decide to improve your old highest score, which was 780. If you were to improve that score, then you will wind up, let's say, with a 800, which means that this will still be your old highest score, Remember, the lender works with the middle score. So if you would have improved your highest score, this score in the middle would have stayed the same. And that means that the lender will still use the 770 score. That's why you want to focus on the middle score so you can bring it up. And then what used to be your highest score becomes your new middle score. Remember, the lender is looking to see what your relationship with money is like, how your finances are like. And the best way to prove that is through your FICO score. The higher the score, the more responsible you will seem in front of the lender, the less risky you will become. And because of that, you increase your chances of getting approved for a mortgage and getting a lower rate as well. If you're enjoying this episode, remember to hit the like button and share this video with someone who you think will benefit from this content. Now, let's pause a little and dive in deeper into what the FICO score means for you, right? A lot of people talk about the FICO here and the FICO there, but do you really know what the breakdown of the FICO is? If you do, congratulations, you're off to a great start. But if you don't worry, that's why we're here. In this screen, you will see a chart from Experian. And in this chart, I want you to focus specifically in these two areas right here. The first one is the amount owed, which has a weight of 30% in your FICO score. That's why in my prior tip, I suggested to pay down that debt, but not any debt, not any credit card, but particularly on the credit card that reported to the agency with your middle score. And every time you bring down that debt, there is a weight of about 30% in your FICO score. So it is up to you to improve it or lower it. But because you're watching this channel, I'm hoping that you're looking to improve it. The next section that you want to focus on is on that 35%. That refers to your payment history. This is the section where the lender will see how timely you make your payments on your debt. Call it credit card, call it a mortgage, call it a car loan. You want to pay on time every single month. Otherwise, your score can move in a negative direction. And based on what you're seeing here, that's not going to look pretty because it will impact your score by 35%. And this is the section that is the most influential on your credit score. Remember, the higher your credit score, the more opportunities you get, the better chances you have on finding financing for the purchase of your home. So when you add these two sections combined, they make up 65% of your credit score. So if you want to have a great impact with little steps, remember, it's all about working smart, not hard. If you want to do the least amount of work as possible with the highest impact, focus on these two sections. And if you do it right, you will be impacting your credit score by 65%. So remember, always try to bring your debt down and always pay on time, preferably before that due date. And if you don't know where you can find your due date, just look at your credit card statement or your credit card application. Now, let's move on to your DTI, which stands for debt to income ratio. And this is the formula. You will take your total debt payments and divide that to your gross income. That is the income before taxes. But I want to take a moment and make an emphasis on this section because I see a lot of people not getting it right. So let's suppose you have 3 credit cards, right? And each of those credit cards have a minimum payment of $30, right? But because you're a responsible person, you're watching this channel, you want to pay the most money possible because you want to bring down that debt, right? And instead of $30, let's say you're paying $200 on a monthly basis on each of those credit cards. And you add that your rent, let's say $2,000 for your rent. We're talking about either $2,090 if we're focusing only on the minimum payment or $2,600. Now, that will have a big impact in your DTI. Let's look at those numbers. So let's say you want to use the minimum payment plus rent. And let's assume your monthly income is $6,000 a month. And then we're going to compare that to the actual payments you make, which is $2,600. And then you're going to divide that by $6,000. When you do your calculations, you will realize that the DTI that uses the minimum payment is actually lower than the DTI that you get if you were to disclose all the actual payments you make. Remember, by law, you're required to make the minimum payment. The fact that you're making a higher payment, that's not required by law. That's you being someone who's responsible and wanting to pay down that debt faster. So when it comes to applying for a mortgage, you want to understand this so you can actually play around with the numbers. You are legally required to disclose what the minimum payment is in your mortgage, which is why it is much more beneficial that you use this number right here. Does it mean you're going to make the minimum payment? Not. If you can, you will obviously try to make the highest payment as possible to bring down that debt. But on paper, you can only put the minimum payment required, and that will help you get a much lower DTI. The lower the DTI, the better it is for you. Because the lower that number gets, the more responsible you will seem, the less risky you will seem to the lender. Now, if you do speak to a lender, chances are they will tell you that as long as you have a DTI of 40% or less, that you should be good to go. But I personally prefer to have a DTI of 30% or less. Why that discrepancy? Well, the lower the DTI, the lower the interest rates that you pay because you will seem less risky. The fact that the lender is telling you that you can get away with 40% DTI, that just simply means that you will be seen as a higher risk for the bank, and therefore they're going to charge you more interest. That's why I always prefer to go on the conservative side and try to bring that DTI to the lowest percentage as possible. Hope this information helps you get that house, and check out this video. I think it's going to help you even more. See you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.